Some things just go together. Wine and cheese, flowers in springtime, and yes, books and bottles. We pair your favorite author with your favorite drink. Your host of Books and Bottles, Benita Johnson.
Hi, welcome to Books and Bottles. I'm your host, Benita Johnson. Happy New Year and welcome to 2022. We appreciate you for hanging out with us during the holidays, watching some of our best of Books and Bottles. We are so excited to be back today. We have a whole slate of wonderful authors and their projects set up for you this season, but we're going to kick it off tonight with some familiar faces. We have some people you've seen before. So, I guess about a month ago, a book hit Amazon and it was instantly a bestseller. The book is called Faith, Failure, Success, Surviving the Storm. And I am so happy and fortunate to have three of the contributing authors with us tonight. So I want to introduce to you Latricia, Cinda Williams, Latricia Rice, Cinda Williams, and Vanya Hudson. Welcome, ladies.
Hello.
How's everybody?
Great. Thank you so much.
So first, I want to say congratulations on the book. This is the second volume of Faith, Failure, Success. Surviving the Storm is the second volume, and y'all hit it out the park again. So kudos to you and for the book being a great success.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, and two of y'all been on the show before, so welcome back. It's good to see y'all. And Vanya, it is my pleasure to meet you. So I want to know, how did y'all feel? What was your first feeling when you were approached to write your portions of Surviving the Storm? We'll start with you, Vanya.
I was strong-armed, actually, because I've been writing the manuscript probably literally over 20 years easily. And the events that occurred over the years, and finally, the person will remain nameless, i.e. Glenn, that...
He's kind of pushy.
He said that the story needed to be told, and that I kept a lot of stuff to myself. A lot of people didn't realize things that I went through, and even up until recently, some of the challenges that I faced. So I put it out there, and it was a tough write because I had to clean it up a little bit and make it readable. Mm-hmm. But after I read it several times, it brought me to tears because, yes, it did need to be said.
Perfect. How about you, Cinda?
When Glenn reached out to me about writing for this book, and my biggest issue was which storm to write about. As most people do, we go through life. If you're living, you're gonna go through struggles and challenges. And I honestly was very afraid to tell this story because my experience has been that oftentimes when you put your heart out there, some people will use it against you. And I've had some experiences with people using my honesty and my truth against me. But then I came to the conclusion that there are so many people of color, especially, that are afraid to share their struggles when it comes to mental wellness, that it was necessary for me to tell the story, no matter what the consequences. For those few that might read it and be affected and maybe helped, it was more important to tell the story than to keep it to myself.
And that's a very important point. We tell our stories, and people do weaponize it, and then we're vulnerable and we're out there. So I appreciate you for sharing. Miss Latricia, how about you?
Well, for me, when I was approached to write this story, I just thought, thank God, because it was the best timing, if you will. I went through a period of not wanting to write anymore after the significant losses that I experienced. And I went ahead, although I'm a licensed clinician, I got my own therapist. And after doing some different writing exercises in therapy and writing the foreword to Faith, Failure, Success, Stories Along the Entrepreneur Journey, I said, okay, it was just 2 pages. I'm good. But then when Glenn said write a chapter, I'm like, oh, I had just quit on writing. You know? But okay, God, it must be you because I've moved further along in my healing journey to wholeness. So I believe that taking the time to heal, and healing is still a process. There's still healing that is taking place even now. But taking the time to move further along the journey allowed me to be able to give Glenn a yes when he said, "Are you willing to write a chapter in this book?"
Yeah, and your chapter was called, let's see, Life's on Fire. Life on Fire, right? And
Yes,
so
life on fire.
it dealt with the loss of two people very, very close to you. And so you kind of shared a little bit about your journey, how we got up to that. And it was kind of, you didn't have a lot of preparation. You want to talk a little bit about your storm?
Sure. Well, I met my husband through social media. He slid in my DMs, right? He lived in a whole different state, lived in Columbia, South Carolina. But after roughly about a year and a half courtship, he moved here to Michigan to marry me. And within a couple months, my grandmother, who raised me, died. And then a month later, he died from COVID-19. And so I went through a period of just being devastated, immense depression, so much so that it affected my body, which is something that will be described in the book, Faith, Fear, Success, Surviving the Storm. But it was really hard. I felt like my life was on fire. And when we think of fire, a lot of times we tell youth, don't touch it, right? Don't touch it.
Yeah.
But what do you do when you're in the middle of it? When you feel like everything that you knew is just burning up right in front of you? How do you go through that type of storm? So in my chapter, Life on Fire, I'm describing how God helped me to get through that type of storm and what's going on the other side. On the other side of that storm, there is victory. And sometimes we have to push forward to see it.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing. Cinda, your chapter is My Life Depends on It. And so when you spoke earlier, you talked about multiple storms, and life, we do go through that. So can you share a little bit about what you talked about in surviving the storm?
Well, this specific story was a rebirth. Some people might call it a mental breakdown, but for me, it was a rebirth because I'd been carrying trauma with me since very young age. When I was a baby, the trauma of listening to my parents fighting and arguing, and the fear. I lived with night terrors my whole life, because in the middle of the night my father would come home and it would always turn into a row with my parents, and so all of these things built up in me. And I'd gotten therapy before, which helped me tremendously for some of the sexual abuse and trauma that I'd experienced. But there were still things I needed to work through. So when this occurred, I called it a perfect storm. So it was perfect for the book. My health was an issue. I was going through a divorce. I was being stalked by a horrific stalker that's still with me. I had all these things happening at once, and it just broke me down because I never would stop. I would never stop no matter what circumstances. I never stopped working
Yeah, you
because
mentioned being like a workaholic, or being
yes,
accused of being a
y-
workaholic.
yeah, definitely a workaholic, never stopped. And that's in every area of my life, being a mother, taking care of my parents, trying to be proactive in my family's lives, and then all my friends, being everybody's therapist, even though I'm not a therapist, all these things. And it just culminated into one perfect storm that sat me down in a hospital for several weeks and made me stop. First, I did die. I flatlined, and because of my blood pressure just reached a point of no return. And then once I came out of that, came back into my body, then I went through the whole healing in a mental a hospital. So it completely changed my life. I literally experienced it. Oh, I lost my light. I experienced that thing with where when you die, your life flashes before you. You understand everything. You know who you've hurt. You know who's hurt you. You know why, the patterns. I experienced all of that. And so when I came back out of this, I was a completely new person. And so as difficult as it was, and it took me a couple of years to fully recover, I came out a brand new person, and I like me. So
Good.
it was beautiful.
We like you too.
Thank
So, Vanya,
Yes.
I'm a product, the
Yes.
journey, 1967 through the present.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about your storm.
My storms are collaborative. And 1967 is the year I was born. So this year I'm 55 years old in April. And because I've gone through so much, I thought it was apropos to say to the present, because as you read through the stories up until this past summer, I've gone through everything from selecting the wrong spouses, plural, and suffering mental and physical abuse from all three of them, sexual abuse myself, the traumatic car accident that nearly took my life in 91. I'm not supposed to be sitting here looking even remotely the way that I look right now, because I flatlined as well. They gave me last rites. I was totally brain dead. And the reconstructive surgery that was needed to put my face back together was a God-given miracle from the emergency room staff at Christ Hospital. They told me I'd never walk again. I would be basically a vegetable. And God had a bigger plan for me. So, do I still have problems? Yeah, because I don't pick up as quick as I used to or whatever, but I am truly determined. And that's why I switched my career from corporate marketing. I made really good money in corporate marketing. But I am a product to help those that have chronic illnesses and disabilities, because that team at the hospital that day saved my life and took the time to help me rehabilitate as well. So that's what I do. And one of my specialties is working with cancer patients, because most of them think it's the end of the road, but it is not. You can, if you've got the right people behind you, you can live a full, active life with your family. So and then of course surfing 3 cancer scares myself. So it's been something, just one thing after another. So I tell everybody I keep getting knocked down, and I just dust my knees off, the good knee and the bad knee, and keep on pushing. So
the cliche, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
mhm.
Do y'all feel like, everything that you went through, because, the storms weren't just one thing. I mean, we all had some traumatic things that happened throughout our lives. Do you feel like, those things kind of build you up and prepared you for the storms that came after?
Absolutely.
I had a friend of mine, actually my very first boyfriend, who I've maintained a cordial friendship with over the years. And we stopped being together in college. I was a senior, and I hadn't talked to him for many years. And I reconnected, and we were talking, and he was like, "My goodness, have you written a story?" I was like, "Well, what do you mean by that?" He said, all the things that you have survived and gone through have given you such a great testimony and a story to help others. And because his belief system is that we attract these things for our growth, and for God uses all of these things. And I agree with that. I wouldn't wish some of these difficulties on my worst enemy. Anything from this book that these ladies have gone through, I wouldn't wish on anyone. But I think you can make one of two choices. One of three choices. One is you can just become bitter and hateful and live a very sad life, or you could just sit in it and never heal and just be a hermit.
Yeah.
Or you could do like the ladies and the writers in this book and pick up and use the experiences to make your own life better and those you love and those you never meet in your life better. And I think that's what these ladies have done.
I think so. Okay, so we're going to bring on our wine expert right now because I want to salute you ladies with the toast. So I think it's a perfect time to bring on Miss Stephanie Franklin. Franklin. Hey, Stephanie.
Hello, how are y'all?
Doing good. Thanks for being on our show.
Thank you for having me. I'm a second time, what do you call it? Second repeat.
Yes, that just means your family. So you'll be back again and again.
Thank you, thank you. Happy New Year to everybody too.
New
Same
Year.
to you. So tell us about Franklin Vines. What do you do?
So Franklin Vines, I, left corporate and did the whole nonprofit, and I just wanted to really dive into what I really, really loved, and that was wine. And I found that you can actually have a career in wine, and started getting my certifications here in Houston, Texas. And when I studied WSET 3, I'm like, oh my gosh, I want to be a winemaker and I want to have a vineyard. And that is the path that I'm going down. And it's pretty exciting to kind of see it all kind of play out. So Franklin Vines was my vision. That's what I would like to call my vineyard, or that's what I'm going to call my vineyard.
Okay.
Franklin is my last name, and the vines excites me and makes me happy, and I love the grapes. So I just thought it was so fitting.
Okay, and so where is this vineyard going to be?
So my first vineyard will be in East Texas, and that's because my family has land that no one is doing anything with. I've already had the land analyzed by a viticulturist, and so I actually can grow grapes there. And then I would like to work towards doing something in the Texas Hill Country or Texas High Plains.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So what are we drinking tonight?
So tonight we are drinking a 2019 Givry red Burgundy wine. So Givry is a small village in the Côte Chalonnaise sub-region of Burgundy, France. It's a very young and expressive wine, and I thought it'd be a great way to kick off the new year. So let's go ahead and dive into it. So the color is almost a deep ruby, almost a crimson color with a little bit of the purple hues. On the nose, you get blackberry, you get some strawberry as well as vanilla. And on the palate, you're going to get some raspberry, some tart cherry, and as well as some oak. This is a very dry wine. It's a medium-bodied wine, medium tannins, medium acidity, and it's very smooth on the finish. A little bit about the grapes. They were 100% destemmed. The grapes were 100% hand harvested. The wine aged about 75% in still tanks and 25% in oak barrels, and it aged for a total of 8 months. So I didn't just pull out a wine just because I'm doing the show. I put some thought into it. I'm like, we all are starting fresh, a new year.
Yes.
And I thought about this wine. It is a young wine. It has a lot to say on the nose, and it has a lot to say on the palate. So it's very expressive. So that's why I chose this one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So for all of our viewers are not wine experts. So you said a red Burgundy.
Yes.
What does that mean to folks who don't know?
So yes. So this is a red wine, and it was made in Burgundy, France. This wine was made with 100% Pinot Noir grapes. So Burgundy is a region in France.
So I'll tell you my first wine story real quick. So I opened my first store in 2005, and I didn't know anything about wine. I just knew I liked wine and I drank a lot of it. And so I'm going to open these stores. And so when one of my reps, I didn't like Chardonnay. That's what I knew, right? And so when my rep said, I'm going to introduce you to a white Burgundy. First of all, Burgundy is a color red, right? So that's where I didn't know anything about areas of France. And so, when he said a white burgundy. He was like, okay, he tripping. But I didn't know. It's, so that was like my first, lesson. And girl, you better learn real quick, or you're gonna lose a whole lot of money in this industry.
I love that. I know, and then during my free time, I love to have wine tastings. Just to teach a little bit about wine 101, because I know wine can seem a little stuffy, a little intimidating, and I have a lot of people who are always asking me questions, and I'm like, okay, well, why don't I do like some wine tastings? Just to educate about the basics of wine. So they won't seem so scary to them. So. Yeah.
Perfect. So do you do any of these tastings virtually? A lot of
I do.
Still aren't going out.
Okay. I do. Yes.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
All right. So how can our folks keep up with you? How do we find Miss Stephanie?
Yes. So I am on Facebook under Stephanie Franklin. I will soon have another page under Franklin Vines on Facebook, but I do the majority of my posting on Instagram, which is Franklin_Vines. And I also have a website, which is franklinvineshtx.com.
Okay. Thank you. You're welcome to hang out with us a little while, but I wanted to toast to the ladies
Absolutely.
for kudos on the book, debuting at number 3 on Amazon.
Kudos.
Climbing. So cheers, ladies.
Cheers. Awesome.
So feel free to hang out.
I would love to.
With the back to the authors, one of the common things that, when I read the whole book, so I read other folks' entries as well. And, the common theme, was faith. And so when you're going through these storms, how did you just still kind of go back to what, we were taught? Y'all were very faithful ladies and know that, the storm doesn't last always. These are all cliches that I was hearing in church, but sometimes when you're in it, I can imagine that it's hard, to focus back on that. So how did you manage to will yourselves to fall back on, as grandma would say, trouble don't last always?
I took a lot of it back to growing up in the church. Even though I was baptized early, I was a rebel by the time I was in high school, and church wasn't nothing basically, and went through college acting a fool and everything as well. But I always kept scripture close by with me, and it always managed to get me through whatever I was going through. And when I tell people that Hebrews 11 is a faith chapter, it truly is a faith chapter. And it will calm you, it calmed me. And it just, many people don't know how to sit down and take take a step back and listen to God. Everybody's always constantly moving, trying to figure out something, but you got to learn how to be still. And he never said it was going to be easy, but he said, if you do continue to have faith in me, you will reap the reward. So that's what I've managed to do over the years. And I don't, you spoke about bitterness and regret and everything. I am not bitter. I'm not regretful. It has taught me to be a much stronger person and a kinder person to others as well, because if I didn't have it, I'd be another statistic.
Yeah, absolutely. Anybody else want to answer that?
Sure, I'll answer that. For me, my faith was shaken. I would describe it as being very rocky, because in my mind, I couldn't believe that I was going through what I was going through. I'm like, God, how do you love me and yet put me through this type of pain all at the same time? And so I went through a period of being angry with God. I would listen to the devotionals. I might listen to the scriptures. I didn't want to get out of bed. I had the blackout curtains, and if somebody moved the curtain, I was upset. So I was going through that whole phase. And then the thing that helped me to get back into rightful position, if you will, is reminding myself that God is a parent. And sometimes we get angry with our parents and we don't know what they know. Like when you think about being a child and your parent tells you you can't go spend the night at somebody's house, right, and you're angry with that parent because you really want to go spend the night. What a parent may know that at that house, maybe it was just shot up the last week. but they don't have to tell you everything they know. Their responsibility is to protect you. So my mind went, okay, it's okay for me. God can handle my emotions. I'm angry with him, and he knows that he can handle my emotions. So I'm gonna just talk to him how I'm feeling right now, and then move from there to forgiving. You know, I had to forgive myself. I had to forgive God, if you will, because we had to forgive our parents for the things that we didn't hear answers to, that we wanted answers to. But we have to trust. I had to get to the place where I said, okay, God, I trust that you have something better, you know? So I had to go through that whole range of emotions in order to get back to my rightful position in God.
Wow. Thank you for that. I something just fell in my spirit as y'all were talking, and so I'm just gonna say I'm gonna be the first person to buy tickets to the Faith Value Success Surviving the Storm tour, because I feel like you ladies need to, go on the road and like speak to folks. Everybody don't read. Y'all need to go and speak to folks, because these stories are healing and they're inspirational, and they do help others look at their lives and see what it is, what your stories are very reflective and how they can heal from it and move forward. I'm putting that out in the universe, and I know our boss Glenn is listening. So see y'all on tour.
You have no idea whose life you're changing. Having done the other book, I had been blessed over the years for people to reach out and say, I thought I was alone, all of that. And so, like you said, people don't read. So I think it is important that we do shows like this and hopefully get out there and talk to people directly, because so many people feel like they're alone. And for me, I know it's surviving the traumas over the years that let me know that I'm going to survive this, because everything that happens, I survive and I get through. And I think people forget.
Yeah.
They forget that you made it this far, especially when they're still young, when they're young ladies and gentlemen, and they just feel like life is too much because they haven't lived enough life to know that this is temporary.
Right. And sometimes as a young person, we feel like nobody else has gone through this before. This is my unique struggle, and that's just not true.
It really isn't. And it's so many, the older you get, the more you can look back on your life and say, wow, if that hadn't happened, as horrible as it was, this might not have happened, or that might not have happened, or I might not have had this experience, or I might not have been able to help that person. Right. And so it takes wisdom. And so I think it's important that people that have wisdom communicate with people who are just starting out, or people who are our age who have never really given happiness a chance or joy a chance. Yeah. These kind of conversations help them.
Yeah, I agree. And, it's just always just going back and falling on that belief system, whatever your faith-based system is, just falling back on that, that is a source of our strength. So ladies, I really want to thank y'all for being a part of this. I want to encourage all of our viewers to get this book. Faith, Value, Success, Surviving the Storm can be purchased on Amazon. I know that because that's where I bought it. My one purchase on Amazon for the month of, I was telling our folks earlier, I don't do dry January. I try to not do Amazon in January, but I'm failing. So please pick up the book and look for these ladies, because we're going on tour. If I have to kick it off in Richmond, we're going on tour. So thank you again. And I know I'll see all of you back here on Books and Bottles.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Viewers out there who are authors and you want to be a part of Books and Bottles, please email us at info@groseprod.com. We love to have you. So until next week, we thank you so much for being here, and we will see you again on Books and Bottles. Cheers.
Cheers.
Camped out at home for COVID? Join us, Indie TV, where you will see the talk shows, movies, drama, action, and comedy Be the first and see it first. Sign up now for free at Indie TV.